Hi guys! Today we're going to be talking about how to easily delegate your sales funnel creation. So I've worked with a team for years. I've done a lot of sales funnels and launches for myself as well as for my clients. So I know a little bit about how big this type of project can be and how overwhelming it can be, and it can be a little bit tough to figure out where to get started and how to delegate it out to your team, because especially if it's a big launch and a big sales funnel, you may not be able to do everything yourself, and you really shouldn't have to, because you should be able to hopefully delegate some of this work to your team if you have a team, or consider hiring somebody or a couple of people to help with a project this big. Because when it comes to these types of projects, you're really going to want to be focused on the top level work, the most important stuff, the content creation. So a lot of times, say you're launching a course or something, you're going to want to be focused on the actual course content creation, while your team or somebody that you've hired to help you with this launch or sales funnel project is going to be helping with those other pieces. So like the marketing pieces that go into the creation of this sales funnel, while you're focused on the more higher level stuff that's really your zone of genius. So actually creating the content, recording videos, taking any photos that need to be taken, maybe doing some like outlines for copy, sales page stuff. But there's so many things that go into a sales funnel that it's not always possible to do the whole thing yourself, and you really shouldn't have to. So if you are going to be launching something or creating a brand new sales funnel, this is the perfect video for you, because I'm going to walk you through the 5 steps so that you can easily delegate some pieces of this project to other people, so that you can really focus on the pieces that you want to do, that you love to do, and are the most important. So the first step of how to easily delegate this sales funnel or launch, it can kind of be either one. A lot of launches involve sales funnels, so I'm kind of putting them together, is to set a launch date and goal. So if it's a launch, you're obviously going to have a launch date. You may also want to set a goal for like number of sales, or how much revenue you're going to make, or how many people you want to enroll into your program or your course. If you are implementing a more evergreen type of sales funnel, you're still going to want to set some type of a launch date. So, for example, I'm working on my own evergreen sales funnel right now, and even though there is not technically like a launch date, I still have a date in mind that I want this evergreen sales funnel to go live on. And what this does is it helps give me a frame of reference, setting this sort of deadline for myself, even if it's like totally like doesn't have to do with anything besides, I picked a date out of thin air. It can be really helpful to keep yourself on track, especially if you're deadline motivated or possibly have trouble with like procrastinating. Setting a deadline can be really helpful. And again, even if it's evergreen, you might want to set some sort of goal for like sales per month, or number of leads per week, or however you are interested in tracking it. Having some sort of goal in mind is a great place to start. So step number 2 is, from that launch date, you're going to want to work backwards and create what I like to call a plan of action for how you're going to do all these things and put it all together by that date. And in this step, you may realize that your date that you've set is a little unrealistic. This has happened to me before. If you are working on it and you realize, oh my gosh, there are so many things that need to get done by that launch date, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Obviously, you can move that launch date at your discretion, but by the end of step 2, you're going to want to have a firm launch date that you are 100% decided on, and at that point, don't move it anymore unless it's like an emergency or something like you totally didn't see coming happens and you do need to move it for that reason. But once you do have a firm launch date set, and by the end of step 2, you're going to want to stick to it and really keep yourself motivated to complete all of the work by that time. And it also helps you set sort of like milestone deadlines for all of the different types of things that you'll need to get done along the way. Those deadlines will be sort of based on that overall bigger deadline, so it's really important to not move it and to, you know, stick to those deadlines as much as possible to help you complete the project in a timely manner and to make sure that everybody on your team is performing appropriately and getting everything that they need to do done in the amount of time. So at this point, we're going to basically make a list of everything that you need to do in order to complete your sales funnel or launch, down to the very like nitty gritty details. You're going to want to have like a really, really in-depth detailed list of everything that you want to do. So for example, a sales funnel I'm working on for one of my clients right now has over 30 top level tasks. And each of those tasks could probably be broken down further. So there should be a lot of things on your list. Like you might have, you know, like 100 things on this list. A sales funnel or launch, they're typically really, really big projects with lots of details, lots of moving parts and pieces. So you're going to want to take maybe like an hour to sit down and really brain dump every single thing that needs to get done as part of this launch. And then you're going to want to review everything and make sure that that launch date and goal that you set in step number 1 is actually realistic. And if it is, then great. If it's not, move it. And then at this point, you're going to confirm that is definitely the launch date. And at this point, you're not going to move it anymore. And then step number 3 is to get organized within your project management system. So basically you're going to want to take that brain dump that you just did on your piece of paper or in a Google Doc and organize it nicely inside of your project management system so that you and everybody else on your team or whoever's working on the project can sort of at a glance review everything that is part of the project, can look at all of their tasks, can see everything that needs to be done, and it's all like neatly organized in order. So there's kind of 2 ways that you can organize your plan of action or your launch plan or your sales funnel plan. So option A is to use stages or due dates. So I'm actually going to show you an example. Give me 1 second to pull up my example, and then I will share it with you. It's something that I set up for a client of mine in their project management system. And so we set it up by stages, which is, it sort of follows along the line of due dates as well. So each stage is kind of in order. And let me just show this to you. See where I don't think, okay, here, let me show you. Okay, so I have like an overview section, and then I have a phase 1 section, and then I have a phase 2 section, and then a phase 3 section and a phase 4 section. And as you can kind of see, they continue on in they kind of go in order. So like first we do the stuff in phase 1, then we do the stuff in phase 2, and then phase 3 and phase 4, and some of them kind of, and then, so I just showed you that option for organizing your plan. The second option is going to be by type of task. So when I do sales funnels for myself or for my clients, I like to break them down into 4 areas: admin, design, copy, and tech. I find that most sales funnels kind of break down in this order and have those 4 areas. So like first you do some of the admin work, then you write all the copy, then you do the design, and then you hook up the tech pieces. And it sort of, kind of happens in that order. So it's similar to option A, but just organized a little bit differently. It works for me to break it down this way because it does tend to be kind of chronological anyway. And I like to have it like this so I can easily see at a glance all of the tasks in each area and which ones need to be delegated to each team member. So if you have a team, maybe you have like a marketing team or a tech team, or even if you just have like a marketing person and a tech person, you can it's kind of easier to delegate when you break it down in that way. And then for step number 4, you're going to choose which things in this list, like all of these tasks that you've now created, we haven't actually delegated them out yet. So first, you're going to choose which things you're going to do yourself, and then also which things you're going to delegate out to a team member. So when I'm delegating a large project, I like to start by first identifying which things in all of these tasks that I personally absolutely have to do myself, no matter what. So, for example, like the project could not function if I don't do these things. These tasks are totally going to depend on you in whatever your area of expertise is. For me personally, these types of tasks are like strategy or any tasks that involve content creation, like recording videos or creating a deliverable. But for you, it might look different, whatever your area of expertise is, whatever you do and whatever only you can do on your team. Those are the pieces that you're going to want to delegate to yourself first. So identify those pieces and then assign them to yourself and schedule out your due date. Next, what I like to do is I like to pick and choose some additional things that I would like to do myself as well, but things that I don't necessarily have to do myself. So for me, one of my struggles when delegating a project is that I'm a little bit of a control freak. You guys might feel the same way. Also, I really enjoy the type of work that I do. If it was a perfect world, I would want to create the entire sales funnel myself from A to Z. But I just don't have time to do that, and neither do you. So, but I want to maybe do a little bit more than what is absolutely necessary. So if I do see that I have some time left in my schedule before the launch date, I let myself add in a couple more things to my plate that I would like to do in a perfect world. But I do try to be realistic with this and don't overload myself. I almost never have time to do everything I love to do myself. So I'm really, really strict with myself here. And if you're new at delegating, honestly, I would recommend even maybe skipping this step or just being super, super careful about this. It's really easy to be like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, and not realize that all of this stuff is really not going to fit into your schedule until it's too late to delegate it out. So I would recommend being extremely careful with putting too much on your plate. You basically want to put like the lowest amount of stuff on your plate because you want to be realistic. You might not have time to do everything that you think you're going to have time to do. It always works out like that. But the more delegation experience I've had, the better I get about doing this more realistically. But it's always a struggle for anybody who's delegating stuff and who is a control freak. So step number 5 is then delegating all of the remaining tasks to a team member. So once you've picked which things you're going to do and which things you're not going to do, you're going to want to actually go through and assign all of those other tasks that you're not going to do to a relevant team member and give them due dates that line up with the timeline of the project. And when you're doing this, you're going to really want to make sure to be careful about overlapping tasks and dependencies. So for example, if this task can't be done until this task is done, you'll want to adjust the due dates appropriately. And you'll also want to keep a close eye on the project as it's being worked on, because when you are working on a big project like a sales funnel, even if just one small piece gets delayed, the whole project can run off the rails like before you even know it. So you'll want to make sure to be consistently reviewing any late tasks and making sure that due dates of dependent tasks get moved if something does come up. And another thing I do want to mention is it's always good practice to build at least an extra week or two into your project. So going back to step 1 or 2, when you are setting that due date and you think like, okay, here's my schedule. We have time to do everything in this amount of time, and I'm gonna set the due date or the launch date for when all of this stuff is going to be done. I want you to put like an extra week or maybe even an extra 2 weeks as buffer onto the end of that, so just in case, because if you've worked on a sales funnel or a launch or any type of big project before, you know that there is almost always going to be some type of issue or snag or tech glitch or something along the way that you just did not see coming. And creating that buffer room right at the beginning of the project before something like that even has the chance to come up means that even if something does go wrong, you'll likely still be able to launch on time, which is good. You don't want to be stuck at the last minute having to move the date because something went horribly wrong. You really want to build in that buffer time at the beginning of the project to make sure that it's already in place in case something goes wrong. So those are my 5 tips for how you can easily delegate a sales funnel or a launch to your team.